Thank you very much, Henriette Reker. And now I come to Mikael Colville-Andersen, and my wake-up call in case of cycling was 2007 at the Velocity in Munich. And I realized, man, it's stupid. It's about cycling. Cycling is the city changer. And then a few years later, I stumbled over your blog, Cycle Chic. And I realized lots of beautiful photographs of people cycling, and they were dressed for work, they were dressed for the opera, they were dressed for the next date, but they were not dressed in yellow vests and stuff like that. Well, I realized cycling is a matter of fashion, and it's a matter of style and lifestyle. And you are the godfather and mother of urban design and lifestyle cycling. I'm very happy to have you here, and the stage is yours, Mikael.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, thank you. Radkomm, endlich. We have talked about this, Uta and I, for years, so it's really finally good to be here. And on this day, this is the best day to come to Radkomm. I was thinking, sitting there, that I do a lot of these keynotes all over the world. I don't know, maybe 300 keynotes in the past 10 years. And I can't remember the last time the mayor of a large city was in the audience. It's really a rare thing. So. But Henrietta, you don't know what I'm going to say, so I'm just going to say Entschuldigung before I start. So wait for it. I'm not from Cologne. I can't vote here. I have nothing invested in here. I have nothing to sell. I just have some ideas about cities, and I want to talk about bicycle urbanism, about how we need to put the bicycle back as transport in our cities. But the first thing I like to say at conferences like this is that I am not a cyclist. I don't identify as a cyclist. I don't have the spandex or the fancy bike or the gloves with no fingers or the helmet. I know lots of cyclists. They're my friends all over the world. But I am just a man who uses a bicycle to get around in my city. That's my bike. It's parked at Copenhagen Airport right now. So I will go home and hop on my bike and go home. But I've worked in over 100 cities as an urban designer, trying to make cities better, trying to make urban lives better. And my job is to know what is going on everywhere. I can tell you about this cool new campaign in Santiago in Chile, or the new infrastructure in Vancouver. All of the cities around the world, I know what's going on. I was thinking, in the last 12 years of doing this, I've only ever heard one thing come out of Cologne. And it was a few years ago where the city hired some clowns to make the pedestrians behave in the traffic. That's the only thing I've heard. And that's shaming the pedestrians. Nobody was talking to the motorists who kill people. They were just shaming the pedestrians, right? So you got to work on that brand, Cologne. So I have a TV series I want to tell you about, which is coming out on Servus, the Austrian channel, in July. And this is what I do now. This is the age of urbanism. It's bikes, but it's everything urban, and cities around the world are changing. So I curate all of these amazing stories in cities around the world of activists and citizens, just regular people who are tired of waiting for the municipality to do things, so they take back the space, they take back the streets, and they say, we insist on change. Something is happening around the world. People are doing this. It's not one communication campaign. It's a little neighborhood in Buenos Aires. It's this one guy in Tokyo, some families in Toronto. It's really an interesting age. Things are changing, and I think most of the people in this room are part of that change. But we have to understand that it's different. So I'm looking forward to this coming to the German language countries in July. So I have a couple of books. The one here on the left is 10 years of my thinking and my philosophies and everything we need to put bicycles back into cities. It's coming hopefully in German by the end of this year. But then I wrote another book a couple of months ago. I know who reads this book, hopefully all of you, and colleagues and urban designers and people who care about the development of our cities. But then I wrote another book called A Short Introduction to Bicycle Urbanism for People Who Don't Give a Fuck. Because there's a lot of people who don't give a fuck, basically. Oh, and the German title, should I try this? This is Eine kurze Einführung in Fahrrad-Urbanismus für Menschen, die eine Scheiß darauf geben. So. It's available online, like on demand. It's not in bookshops, but you can buy it now. This is the book that we read and we laugh because it's fun, and then we give it to somebody who will hate it the most. Whoever, the whiners, the NIMBYs, the skeptics, we got to give it to them. Leave it on their desk at work and run away, you know, because I'm speaking to them and I'm not speaking very nice, but it's fun. It's humor, right? Anyway, so let's talk about democracy first. It's not about bikes first. It's about urban democracy. And we come from democratic countries, me and you, and this should be something that's very important. And I love the streets. And I really am poetic about the streets. They are the skeleton of our city. They are the veins that pump the lifeblood out to the corners of the urban landscape. The streets can be beautiful. And for 7,000 years, the history of our cities, the streets were the most democratic space in the history of Homo sapiens. We did everything in the streets. They were our shared living room. We bought and sold things. We transported ourselves. We talked to our neighbors. We gossiped. We started revolutions. We flirted. We found our partners. We broke up with our partners. So our children played in the streets. Everything happened there. And it was, you know, beautiful. Maybe in the 1500s we could die of some disease, tuberculosis or whatever, but the streets were still the ultimate democratic space in history. And then we did this. Oh my God. We invented the automobile, that's one thing, but then we tried to push as many as possible into our cities. And it's after 100 years of trying, it's time to admit that it never worked out very well for anybody, the motorists or the rest of us. I mean, it's not going to work ever, and we have to think differently about it. But what happened when we started to put the cars into our cities was a massive change in perception from a democratic space to traffic safety problems, because cars started killing people from day one, and the engineers were handed the job of trying to fix that back in the early 1900s. Oh, and they put streets into a box like public utilities, water supply, electricity, sewage, streets. All of a sudden it changed the perception. They became mathematical puzzles to be solved, you know, and not a democratic space anymore. And the automobile industry in America, this all started in America first, they had a problem. They knew that people hated them. This is literally, they call it in America the anti-automobile age, from 1910 to the mid-1930s. If you drove a car in the city, you were the stupidest person. You were hated, you know. If you hit a kid on the street, you could almost get pulled out of your car and lynched. It was a fascinating time. Cars were not welcome in cities from the beginning. And the automobile industry, they used 20 years of marketing, spin, and making fun of people to start changing their perceptions. Jaywalking is this American word for crossing the street in the middle of the block. That was a name that they were calling the pedestrians, the people who were, you know, trying to cross in the middle of the block, which we did for 7,000 years, and all of a sudden, no, you can't do that anymore. And that up at the left, Boy Scouts were handed these flyers. They were giving them to people. You can't do that anymore because cars, you know, cars, right? So stop doing that. Go up to the corner, to the crosswalk where we are controlling you, and wait for permission to cross the street from the traffic engineers. And even playgrounds. We all know the playground. It's universal. They were invented by the American automobile industry to get kids out of the way. And then it took them 20 years, and they finally changed the perception. And the streets were clear of these irritating people like pedestrians and cyclists and everything. And then it was really the greatest paradigm shift in the history of our cities. Nothing before, nothing since has changed our cities so much as this change in perception. And now it's the same everywhere in the world. Oh, streets are there for cars. Everybody else get out of the way. But this is a sign that we're going somewhere different. We're going towards a new paradigm shift, one that I call back to the future. This is my favorite quote for years. The former mayor of Paris, an amazing man who became elected, and he said, I'm going to make Paris nicer. That's all he wanted to do. And his quote is, the fact is that cars no longer have a place in the big cities of our time. In Germany, that's crazy talk, that guy. Like, oh, scheisse. You know, that's like, well, who is this guy? No, he's the mayor of fucking Paris, okay? Like, he means it, right? And my new quote is, my favorite politician at the moment, I can't even vote for her, the vice mayor of Oslo. A couple of decades ago, it was perfectly normal to smoke cigarettes indoors, right? And I think it's the same with cars in the city center. One day we'll look back and ask ourselves, like, was that really a good idea, right? And it's not just these two. This is what politicians, that's her, not me. They're not alone, right? It's not just two crazy politicians in some weird country, right? Or some weird city. The mayor in New York, in Vancouver, Buenos Aires, Mexico City, all over the world, they're starting to say things like this. And that's a sign that we can be optimistic, that we are moving towards a different paradigm shift. When people like that say things like this. We have to change the question. So many questions, man. But I mean, if we're talking about transport in cities, the first question we change is this. For 70 years, we've only asked one question of our traffic engineers. And I work with them all over the world, and they all say, yeah, that's what I was educated to answer. How many cars can we fit down the street? That's basically all they've been asked. We've never thought to ask them a different question. Here's a street, how many cars? Can we get more down there? Can we, make it more effective for cars and everything? We'll never be able to do it. The only thing we've learned in 100 years of traffic engineering is if you make more space for cars, you get more cars. You're back to square one within 6 months to a year, anywhere in the world in the past 100 years. And imagine the money we still put into motorways, Autobahn, in widening roads in cities. It's never ever worked. It's complete bullshit. So let's change the question. And okay. So what I think is fun is that we can change one word in that question. And if you change this question, you get whole new answers. How many people can we move down a street? We just changed one word. How many people can we move down a street? And we use all the stuff that we've invented, like cool stuff, bikes and trams and buses and trains. We got all this cool stuff. And if you literally start asking that question, in an age of urbanization where people are moving to our cities like never before, it's an important question for cities. It's just logistics. It's just pragmatic. How many people can you move down the street? That model I made in the bottom in Photoshop literally has 10 times the capacity for moving people down a street than the model at the top that we just copy-pasted from the Americans in the 1950s without thinking. If we're serious about moving people down a street and making a city work, we have better ways to do it. So this is a short history of traffic engineering, kind of for fun, but for 7,000 years we were rational. We prioritized our primary transport forms from A to B very quickly. We have horses and carts and people. 1900, the bicycle had appeared in our cities, revolutionizing transport, amazing time. Public transport, still we were rational. 1920s, the car showed up. We were still rational. And then something weird thing happened in our brains in the 1950s here in Europe, earlier in America. We just reversed it. We put all of our money on one horse, the car. We could not envision another future without the car. And that's what it looks like in most cities in the world. You have the car given the fast A to B, and everybody else, good luck with that. I got to go to the, I got to wait for the, you don't know where, you don't, and I was cycling all around Cologne yesterday with VDR, TV crew. Yeah, so, fuck my life. That's a really cool graphic from Sweden. I didn't credit them because I can't remember who it was, but it's everywhere. That's what it's like to walk around or cycle around a city that is car-centric. That's what it feels like, right? It's just like you're just got your little sidewalk here and your little, 75 centimeters of bike lane, and everything else is just a canyon. But this is the quickest guide to planning a modern city that you'll ever see. You prioritize the 3 transport forms on the left, cycling, walking, public transport, and you make driving a car a pain in the ass. That's all you do. It's really that simple, right? It's really, I mean, in a way, it's just transport psychology. That's what I work with. It's like, we know that the three transport forms on the left, psychology, we are intermodal. If my bike is flat in the morning, oh God, my bike is flat. But I walk out and I get on a metro or a bus. I get to work like 10 minutes late. I can never be later for work than 10 minutes. It's kind of irritating sometimes. Sometimes you just don't want to go to work. But I'm just like 10 minutes late. And we know that motorists in transport psychology, I'm not actually making fun of them right now, in transport psychology, we know that they are the last people to change their their behavior. If we talk about carrots and sticks in cities, right? We don't need carrots. We just need the biggest stick in the history of cities, and that's the line on the right there. You just make it more difficult. You make it more expensive. You take away parking. You make parking expensive. You do everything you can to stop that because it has never worked in 70 years, and people are dying. It's that simple. But like here in Germany, and the Americans and the Germans, you have a lot of campaigns where ride a bike, it's good for you. Ride a bike for the environment. Those campaigns don't mean anything unless we can change behavior on the physical landscape of a city and force the behavior change, right? No more talking about it. Just do it. In so many places in the world, we have relied only on traffic engineering. That one profession has been given the job of moving stuff around, people around a city. And we need new design intelligence. We need a new urban toolbox. There are so many other things that can contribute to moving people around a city and saving lives and making life better. Everybody, we talk about Copenhagen. Oh my God, world's best bicycle city. But we know why people cycle in Copenhagen, and it's not to save the polar bear in the Arctic, okay? It's literally, we ask them every 2 years since 1996 in our bicycle account, not mine, but the city of Copenhagen's, and we say, what's your main reason for riding a bike? And it never changes. The majority always says, it's quick. It's the fastest way from A to B in my city. That's all. That's all, I don't do anything else. Some people say, I get my exercise riding along with my music and my basket. I feel good about moving my body. I know that's important these days. Only 6% ride because it's cheap, and only 1% ride because of environmental reasons. In Denmark, very environmentally aware. We know we have to do good things, but riding a bike, it's quick. If you make the bicycle, I call it in English A to Bism. If you make the bicycle the fastest way from A to B, the absolute default in the morning when I walk out of my apartment, bike first. Okay, I can't use the bike. Okay, I got to go there. I'll take a train, or I'll ride my bike to the train. The bicycle is the default. If you do that, the weirdest people will be seen on bicycles. Seriously, imagine the weirdest person who will never ride a bike, and they'll be going, I might have to buy a bike now, because it makes sense. Homo sapiens, again, anthropology, transport psychology, all we want to do is go fast from A to B. We do it. Every one of us does it all day long. If I have to leave the stage now and go to the bar, which I will when I'm done, I'm already probably navigating. Okay, it's probably quicker here. Yeah, I have a quicker route. In my head, I'm probably navigating how to get to the bar. Everybody does it all day long. And if we understand that, and if we want people to change their behavior, you outperform the other forms of transport with the bicycle. If you make it like the pogo stick, it doesn't matter. People will do that. Whatever's fastest, they're going to do that. And that is if you do that and you think like that, then half the battle is won. Really, it's the easiest thing to do. Understanding Homo sapiens. It's not traffic engineering on a computer model. It is understanding humans and the way they think. And we have forgotten humans in our cities for 70 years. We've only been thinking about machines. And now it's time to remember the people of our cities. This is another thing I think about, the arrogance of space. I'm standing on the Eiffel Tower in Paris with my kids, and I'm looking down, and I went, whoa, wait, hang on. And I work in this industry, and I'm going, that's a big intersection. We never see it when we're on the ground. We're just trying to survive the intersection. And you look down from above, and you see different things. So I took that back to the office, and I put on a filter, like square meters, and I calculated how much space was given to the different transport forms. Look at that ocean of red. That is how much space the automobiles have been given in that intersection in Paris. The design of the intersection with the corners, that was in the 1950s, so cars didn't have to slow down, so the motorists were not inconvenienced by a corner. This was the way we thought in the 50s. But then you look, man, it's kind of hard to see on this screen, but like you can just look at the red. This is like a whistleblower. This is like the Edward Snowden of urbanism. You can see everything revealed right here. And then I put some more filters on, and even I calculated how many humans were in that intersection, and there's 23 humans in cars. There's only 23 people using that ocean of red. And then here you have like, what, 38 people just on the pedestrian islands, you know, waiting for permission to cross the street and see the damn Eiffel Tower. This is one of the busiest pedestrian intersections on the planet, and you can see where the priorities lie there, right? Even the cars don't take up as much space as we think they do. So this is really just incredibly, this is like 70 years of absolute arrogance in traffic planning, prioritizing one transport form, everybody else is, they're on their own. But fixing that is super easy. It took me 20 minutes with a pencil and then like a few hours in Photoshop, and this went viral in France. Like they're going, holy shit, like you can do that? Wow, okay. And you know, this is even the soft solution, right? Like you can do it much more permanent, but it just sort of changes the perception. Like, we didn't think that was possible. But it's easy. We have 100 years of bicycle planning experience, you know, and it's not hard to do. And look at the pedestrian crossings. No pedestrian will ever do like a 90-degree turn if they have to. We all take the shortcuts. We always take them. Why don't we design our pedestrian crossings to respond to the human way of thinking in our cities? So here's an example of, like, it's not only about the bike. It's, you know, I'm not a cyclist, but I believe in the bicycle as a symbol for what we should be doing for climate change, for improving lives in cities. But it's also the most powerful tool that we possess in cities, that we've ever possessed in cities for making things better. This is Queen Louise's Bridge. This is the world's busiest bicycle street in Copenhagen. This is one, you can see at the bottom, there's one light cycle. That's like every 2 minutes there's a pack of people like that in the morning rush hour. It's an amazing place to see. Massive redesign in 2007, all the way out on this street. We put in the green wave for cyclists so that cyclists, the lights are coordinated for 20 kilometers per hour so we never have to stop. That's understanding the bicycle as transport. The last thing you want to do on a bike is stop. And it's a momentum machine, right? I'm really playing in the home stadium today, aren't I? Yeah, oh, shit. Thank you. No, but I mean, this was one thing. We wanted to make it more effective. This neighborhood, that street was dying. There were 15,000 cars. None of them lived in that neighborhood. They only came from outside where they didn't pay for the asphalt. They paid taxes somewhere else, and the street was really dead. And it's an iconic street for us. It's the entrance to the city from the north for 1,000 years. And so they redesigned it. They have like one car lane, you know, for cars and buses. They widened the cycle tracks. Like each way, it's like 4 meters. Like that's the whole cycle track. And then it's on the other side of the street. We have so much volume, it's necessary. But we widened the sidewalks too, because we were in the process of doing that. And then something happened. It's like Copenhagen's pretty cool. They know what they're doing. But then something happened that nobody saw coming. There was like one guy at a meeting. Yeah, Jens, you're the bench guy. I'm the bench guy. We got wider sidewalks now. Can we put in some benches? Huh. Yeah, okay, put in some benches. Like nobody thought about it. It wasn't part of the plan. So Jens, the bench guy, put in some benches. And it changed, absolutely. Nobody ever stopped on this bridge. And it's where all the light is in the winter in Denmark. Nobody ever stopped. It was a transport bridge. And all of a sudden, there were just 2 benches. And everybody started sitting and getting beer and pizza. And now, like 3 months after this bridge was done, you're getting a text message. Hey, Michael, you want to meet on the bridge? We have a lot of bridges in Copenhagen. And everybody knew this is now just the bridge. It's lost its name. Sorry, Queen Louisa, but it's just the bridge, man. But this is what happened. Copenhagen was like, what? We didn't see this coming. They planned on a 60% increase of cycling. That was awesome, right? 57% reduction in cars, even better, my God. This was Northern Europe's busiest bus route, so there was only a 5% increase there. But 165% increase in pedestrians. Nobody saw that coming. It's like people are going, this is nice to walk here now. There's no cars. Like, it's just like I can hear the birds in the morning, you know? But what on the right is what nobody saw coming. A 1,400% increase in Let's get some beers. Just people sitting there and getting pizza. And you see in the summer, like on a nice day, you're cycling past there, you're staring at people, and they're staring at you, and it's just a human interaction, right? It's just like, and you're just drinking beers, talking to your friends, listening to music. It's amazing. So we created a destination just because we improved the transport efficiency of this street. It's not just the bike. It's like how the bicycle can transform parts of our cities, even when we don't plan on it. So I talk about design, like why don't we design our streets like we design every other product in our lives, right? We only engineer the streets for 70 years. Why don't we design them like everything, like this clicker, right? There's a design team somewhere in the world who the only job they had was to make this a good experience for Michael here today on the stage, right? Yeah, it's ergonomically handy. I can go back, I can go forth. Oh my God, it works. So that team somewhere in the world are going, yes, right? That's all there was a human-to-human process. That's what design is. We design for the end user, that human who we'll never meet, who might use this clicker or that smartphone or whatever. And why don't we design our streets like that? It's really a simple question. Like we design chairs. We love chairs. We've designing them and interpreting them for like thousands and thousands of years. Really fascinated by chairs. Oh, it's an octopus, but it's a chair. Ha ha. You can like them or hate them, but none of you have 4 of these in your living room. You don't buy them. You sort of go, weird, right? If we use chair design as a metaphor for bicycle infrastructure, that's the cycling map of Cologne right there. It's like, I don't know. They'll tell you on the left, they'll say, oh, no, just get out there and ride. Look, it works. See, it works. It's a chair. It's fine. But it's broken. It's not connected in any network. It's not uniform in its design. You got sharp edges. You're going to get, bump your knee and bleed. None of you have 6 of these around your dining room table, right? You don't buy these chairs, right? Because all people want is a damn chair, right? That's all we want. And, what did you do when you came in here today? All of you, you came in, you found a seat, and you sat down, right? And waited for whoever was going to talk, right? You didn't have to find a chair and go, oh, wait, interesting chair. Try to interpret the designer's intentions with the chair. How does this work? Where's the on button? And you weren't worried about the chair disappearing from under you in the middle of my talk like some bike lanes in this city. Wait. It was like... You sat down. It was easy and intuitive. You've been doing it your whole life. You're pretty good at it. Why is it not that easy and intuitive to walk or ride a bike in a city? It's a thing. It's not a concept. It's like that's possible. People are doing it. Design is powerful, right? There's some designer friends who go, design can save the world, man. I'm going, maybe not. But design is powerful. And, it improves human behavior. This is a red light in Copenhagen. It's every red light in Copenhagen. People just wait for the light to turn green. Because we're going to get there quicker. Because we're going to be safe. We're going to feel safe. We're still going to outperform the other modes of transport. We don't have to deviate from the laws. But you cannot tell cyclists, you have to behave first if you haven't given them infrastructure, the infrastructure that they deserve. You can't do that. Because, I can't send my children to their room for stealing cookies if I don't even have cookies in the house. It doesn't make any sense, right? My ex-girlfriend was a teacher of small children with autism, and I learned so much about autism. It's really just generally fascinating to me. But we agreed that, all of us without autism, we are neuronormal. That's what you call us. We decide the rules and the structure for our society and our interaction. Right. Autists have a completely different brain, right? They're designed differently. They are forced to adapt and learn another system, our system, that was not designed for them. If you are riding a bike or walking in most cities in Europe, even today, we are the people with autism in the city. We're forced to adapt to a car-centric system that was simply not designed for us, and that it has nothing to do with us. I deviated from, I don't know how many German traffic laws I broke yesterday riding around this city, and I'm fine with that. I am totally fine with that. I'm not a car. I'm not a motorist, man. So I've been studying, like I noticed a few years ago that nobody in 130 years of the bicycle in our cities had ever studied cyclist behavior on any decent academic research level. It's kind of weird to discover that. I looked through decades in different countries. But the bicycle was so normal for us. You in this city, me and mine, all over the world, we all had a bicycle. But it was like a vacuum cleaner, right? We don't have any scientific studies about vacuum cleaners. The bicycle was just a normal part of our lives. Then we kicked it out of our cities in the 50s and 60s, yeah? But we never thought to study it, which is kind of nice. It was just a workhorse, a tool that made our daily lives easier, like a vacuum cleaner. But I decided in 2012 to be the guy who just figured out cyclist behavior. And I film intersections for 12 hours. And I have anthropologists come in to study the behavior of all the cyclists going through these intersections. The first one I did was it's like 16,631 cyclists. And we map exactly every single desire line, every trajectory, and study the behavior of all of these people. And the city of Amsterdam hired us to do this work as well, filming intersections to try and figure out their bike chaos as well. But I think I've stared at 106,000 people on bicycles in 6 different cities, trying to figure out how humans react to design. In Copenhagen, we react positively to the design because it's intelligent design. In other cities, like me yesterday in Cologne, I reject bad design. I make my own way because that's just fucking stupid, so I'm not going to do that, right? I'm not, you know. But when you get the data, like when you're the person who finds this out, like you discover things that nobody's ever seen, and it changes the conversation. Even in Copenhagen, people are saying, "Oh, those damn cyclists," you know. But it's a personal perception, which means nothing because data changes the conversation. So we found out. I was asking, like, the mayor of Copenhagen and all these other people. All these people, 16,000 people, how many broke a Danish traffic law? Oh, 20%, 30%, 40%. It was all these crazy numbers, and I'm going, yeah. It was actually 7, and really, it was only 1%. I call them recklists. There's 1% everywhere in the world. At the supermarket, at the bowling alley, at your gym, there's that 1%, and we're just going to hate them forever, right? But then the other 6%, we called them momentumists, because you have to understand the bicycle as transport. I don't want to stop. So I will do anything I can to just roll slowly along. And we started studying, the anthropologist doing this, she said, "Michael, I see patterns here." And I'm going, ooh, Michael likes patterns in behavior, awesome. She says, like, among these momentumists, like this guy, it's illegal to ride in a pedestrian crossing in Denmark. So he was coming here, and he wanted to turn left. So he was timing the lights, and then he sort of rolled through the pedestrian crossing. Oh, next one. And he was trying to snake his way through the intersection, going from A to B. A to Bism, that's all he was doing. It's like, it's fine. But she said, listen, they're acting weird. And she said, like, okay, if you don't have to have a PhD in anthropology to maybe understand that if I do something socially unacceptable to you, the audience, which I probably already did, so sorry, but I would maybe make myself smaller, right? If we're sad, if we're embarrassed, we shrink. We're trying to become invisible to the rest of the flock. You would expect people who deviate from behavior to do that. But she said, no, they're all doing the same thing. This guy, you can see him maybe on the screen, he's like rising up. He's like making himself more visible to everybody else, pedestrians and cyclists. And then we zoomed in on their faces. It was so funny. They all had the same kind of face. They weren't looking at anybody, but they were kind of like looking around with a stupid smile. Sorry. It was like, yeah, I know, I'm deviating. Oh, sue me. But they were actually advertising the fact that they were breaking the law. So they were actually being very considerate to the rest of us. And none of them did it at any speed. There were no little old ladies jumping for their lives. Everybody, they did it very, very calmly. And please accept my deviation. And then he got back on the infrastructure, and they all just went, boom. and they assumed the same position and went off to work. It was really interesting when you study these things, that you see something different. They're not the, we're not the criminals of the urban landscape, man. There's other criminals out there. We're just people who are trying to go from A to B, and this is the machine that we're on, and that's how that machine works, and that's how you should plan the city. Yeah. This is like, we're so similar, Germans and Danes, right? But I mean, we're really pragmatic, right? We love design, and we like to know why we do stuff. We got to do the math, right? Because conversations are getting really boring for me and everybody else around the world. Bikes are great. No, they're not. Yes, they are. No, they're not. Like, then when you have the data, it's a whole different starting point at a conversation. So we know in Copenhagen, we've been counting cyclists since 1970, and really hardcore from the mid-90s. We know everything about like cycling because we want to know. We're investing money in infrastructure. Does it work? Is it a cost benefit? Is it a good business model? So we count at 200 spots around the cities regularly. So any street in Copenhagen, I can throw a dart at a map and I can tell you how many cyclists are on that street on average. It proves a point. We were right. That infrastructure was good. It worked. Or it convinces the skeptics. Like in Copenhagen, it's like the left-right thing, and the right are never in power, but they'll always complain. But they'll never, ever vote no to bicycle infrastructure because we can just say, data. Look at the data, man. And they're going, oh, fine, yes to the new bike lane or the new bicycle bridge. Because we prove a point, man, we win it. And it helps plan the future. Okay, that worked, but that's not as popular. Okay, how do we, once you have the data, you have a whole different starting point. 42% of everybody arriving in the city of Copenhagen from all the cities around arrive by bicycle. If you live in Copenhagen, and you go to work or education there, 63% ride a bicycle. That's not like the left-wing hippies, and a couple of hardcore spandex dudes. That's everybody. That's your doctor, your teacher, your children, everybody, nurses, whatever. And 75% ride all winter as well, because it's still the fastest way from A to B. And we keep the infrastructure clean of snow. It's the priority in Denmark. If it snows, the bicycle infrastructure first. If it's a snowstorm, but it's because we have data. We know why we need to do it, right? We know how to move people. Back to the whole point of like, let's move people down a street. That's how we think in Denmark, man. We're not like some foreign, strange culture to you Germans. We're like your neighbors, right? We kind of think the same, ish. But I mean, we know that a best practice cycle track, minimum 2.3 meters wide, both sides of the street, we can move 5,900 people per hour through a city. A car lane, universal, everywhere in the world. It's the same. It's always just one guy or one woman in a car taking up 12 square meters of public space, using a fossil fuel vehicle to move around. We can only move 1,300 of them per hour. And look how long that line is, right? If you imagine 1,300 cars in a row, you can't even see it, right? 5,900 bikes, you can actually see the end of that. So it's also space management. If you add buses and trams, 40, 50,000 a day, this is why we do it in Copenhagen. It's simply the most logical, intelligent, modern way to move people through a city. So we know that, and that's what makes it easier for us to continue doing it. This is the business model. Like, it's not even, like I said, it's not even bikes. It's a business model. The people riding bicycles in Copenhagen, every day, they contribute 233 million euros to the public health every single year, man. 233 million. This guy, just regular people on bikes. And the city of Copenhagen has invested 286 million euros in the past 10 years in upgrading the infrastructure, building 17 new bicycle bridges over the harbor and the canals. And, I talk, you see politicians are going, oh my God, that's a lot of money. Yeah, that's a big number. But we're making, in that same period of time, we made 2.5 billion euros. So 286 was like, yeah, whatever, that's a drop in the bucket. And so I'm really bad at math, but that's the best business model in the history of transportation right there. Okay? Seriously, man. The fun thing about the number 286 is that we did a motorway extension just north of Copenhagen, 3 kilometers of motorway extension. It cost 285 million euros. So that's the choice every city gets to make now, here in the modern age. You can have 3 kilometers of motorway or an entire bicycle-friendly city. This is your tax money, not mine. Every time somebody rides a bike 1 kilometer, we love to measure stuff in Denmark, okay? We did all the work so you don't have to, okay? Every time somebody rides a bike 1 kilometer, we earn 23 cents right in our pocket. Cha-ching. Every time somebody drives a car 1 kilometer, we pay out 87 cents. We throw it into a big black hole and we never ever see it again. And we have 150% tax on new cars in Denmark. If you don't have that, which you don't in Germany, that number, I don't want to know what it is. It's like double or triple, man. You know, it'll make me throw up in my mouth if I have to calculate that number for you guys. God. This is cost benefit, right? This is a business model. The people who ride bikes, just me, like riding to the airport dressed like this. It's not even the spandex people, it's just regular people. I mean, the cost benefit analysis is that we live longer, 7 years on average. Just this guy, drinking too much every night, but I'm still going to live 7, well, maybe 6 then because of the alcohol, but 7 years longer, and we are less ill while we're alive. So we're not calling in sick to our bosses, right? So we're more effective on the workforce, which is important for any economy. And the funny thing is that we're going to die quick. And that's the goal. Seriously, I want to live long, live strong, and die quick, right? A healthy, quick death, right? I don't want my fellow citizens to have to pay for me on a respirator for like the last 8 years of my life. Yeah, that guy, he just made bad lifestyle choices, and now we're paying for this. Like, just go, Michael. Jesus, like, you know, I don't want my citizens to have to do that, so I'm hoping to go quick and not hit by a car, but a natural death, right? Yeah. It's seriously, man, if you build a 1 kilometer of bicycle infrastructure, it's paid off in under 5 years. That's why we do it. It's a business model, man. And it's all been invented. This is, you know, there's no theories anymore. It's all been invented. 1915 in Copenhagen, we had lots of bikes like all of us did, and we went, wait a minute, let's separate them physically from the, what does that say? 45. Okay, no, thanks, sorry. Thought you giving me your phone number, dude. Yeah, talk to you later. We have pedestrians. And we have these, you know, horses and carts, and now we have these cars. Let's physically separate the bikes. And so we did. This is a photo of the first separated bike lane in history. You guys copied it. All over Germany, you had this infrastructure through the 20s and the 30s, and then things happened after the war and during the war. But that was the standard. It's the gold standard. The Dutch copied it. In London, 1934, they copied it. It was all over the place in the Northern Europe and the Baltics. It's all been invented. Generations of planners have done the work. I have the easiest job in the world, really. What's the next slide? Yeah. I have the easiest job in the world. Michael, we need infrastructure for bikes on this street. Michael asks 2 questions. What is the speed limit for cars on that street right now? Okay, and how many cars per 24 hours? Okay, cool. Number 1, number 2, number 3, whatever. There's 4 types of infrastructure in Denmark. Again, we've done the work so you don't have to, okay? Generations of planners. It makes it really easy. You get off a train in Copenhagen on your bike, and the infrastructure is the same absolutely everywhere you go in the country. We like design, we like uniformity. And there's only 4 types. 1, no infrastructure. It's a residential street, you know, slow speed limits, not a lot of cars. You don't need to do anything. Then you have, when the speed limit hits 40, then we start to separate with paint, but still 2.3 meters wide minimum, absolute minimum. We know that that is the capacity we need to have to get people through a city. But most municipalities in Denmark hop that one over and they go to the 3rd one on the bottom right, physically separated with a curb, dedicated space only for bikes. Curb to the cars, curb to the pedestrians, or whatever barrier we can put into the cars. And that one, we know that we're going to get more people cycling. There'll be fewer cars, like a 20% increase in cycling, 15% drop in cars, whatever. All the math has been done. So we'll actually invest that money because it's going to have more of an impact. And then you get to when the speed limit hits 70, 80, 90, 100, Autobahn, you know, you get cyclists the hell away from the cars. You don't mix that. You don't put cyclists in the same space as a car, ever. God. And that's where we, you know, you have green. All the motorways leading to Copenhagen have amazing bicycle infrastructure on either side with trees between you and the cars. You know, you're just cycling through a park, basically. But we know how to do it. It's like it's copy-paste, man. And this photo here, that's not even Copenhagen. That's Ljubljana in Slovenia. 1970, the mayor said, he was really early in this game, this mayor. And he says, we got 2% on bike in Ljubljana. I want some more. And his planner said, Well, how do we do that? I don't know, go to Copenhagen. So they went to Copenhagen in like 1969, and they just like took photos, like it's kind of like the Cold War. It's like secretly taking photos of bicycle infrastructure, and going home to to Ljubljana. You know, this is what they do Copenhagen. Okay, please do Ljubljana. Okay, and I don't know if they have a Russian accent in Ljubljana, but anyway, so they did it. They built 40 kilometers of Copenhagen standard infrastructure, and they went from 2% to 10% in 1 year. Everybody went, oh, I'm safe there. That's awesome. That's quick. A to B. Boom. Everything I've been talking about, they just did it in like a weekend in Ljubljana, and now they're even better. Go to Ljubljana. It's an amazing city. But it's copy paste. It's not talking. It's somebody figured that shit out already. And if this really is the new normal, this is what I find so fascinating about going to some places and having to talk about this, right? It's happening all over the world. Ljubljana in the 70s, great. Now we got Seville. They went from 0.2 on bikes to 7% on bikes in one election term, 4 years. They were elected and they said, go, go, go. And they had infrastructure fall out of the sky in a network, and everybody in Seville, it's like 45 degrees in the summer in Seville. And people are going, oh, I'm going to get on a bike. And they do. 7% increase in 4 years. Buenos Aires, they're copying Seville. They went from nobody, or maybe one guy named Juan, and now they have 3%. And they did the same thing. Infrastructure fell out of the sky, 140 kilometers in the city. Boom. It's not good infrastructure like I'm talking about, but it's a network. It works, right? It's not like taking a train, getting off at a station, and having to walk 2 kilometers to the next station to get on the metro, right? It's connected. It's a network. Calgary in Canada, like weird North American city, like typical North American city. They put in a network of 7 pilot projects all at once, and they're gone to 3%, like in 2 years. Ljubljana, I mentioned. Helsinki, it's amazing. The goal of the city is that you won't need to own a car in Helsinki by 2030. That is a declared goal of the city. We will make other things available for you. Bikes, infrastructure, car share, mobility as a service. You want to move to Helsinki? You won't need a car. Like they're advertising this. They're proud of that. That's their future. Oslo, my God, I was just there last week. And they also, in the course of one election term, 4 years, they have removed 7,500 parking spots, built 140 kilometers of bicycle infrastructure on the Copenhagen standard, and it is now car-free within Ring 1 in Oslo, right? That's that mayor, the quote from that mayor before, that's her work. It's awesome. This is like the new normal. You know, Mexico City, I was there in 2008, and I was just back recently. There was nobody riding bikes. Then they got a bike share, infrastructure. There are more people riding a bike for transport in Mexico City today than live in Cologne. It's like 1 million people a day, and they're in their suits, they're on their bike share bikes, and they're just going, I'm just going to work, man. It's amazing what can happen, and what can happen fast. It's not like talking about it. Oh, Copenhagen, 40 years, Amsterdam, 40 years. Nah, you know what? Cities are doing it like in 3 years now, 5 years. If you want the urban change that we need, it is possible. Yeah. So when you grew up in the Cold War, the Russians are coming was scary. When we said the Russians are coming, you were scared because it was the Cold War. But the Russians are coming now. This little city in the middle of Tatarstan, they contacted us 3 years ago and said, hello, we want to be bicycle-friendly city, Russia, please. And like I'm reading the email and I'm going, everybody look at this shit. This is like a Russian city. Like, no way, come on. It's like, we're expensive, you know. The ruble is sucking really bad. And this mayor, this 35-year-old guy, is going, no, I get this. I've done my research. I want this bad. And so we said, here's the price. It's a big price. And he's going, yeah, that's fine. Can you come next week? Okay. And we went to this little city of 160,000 people in the heart of the Russian oil fields. It's the poetry of this. It's absolutely fantastic. It's the best job I've ever had. Oh my God. And the guy said, just do anything. What do you just take my city and make it bicycle friendly? All my engineers are told they have to listen to you. It's kind of a dictatorship, right? Maybe that's actually what we need. I don't know. But so that's not going to happen maybe in Western Europe, but still, we actually had the discussion, okay, it's kind of a dictatorship. Like, should we work with these people? And go, no, we're making human lives better. Like, so we were fine with that. We literally had the conversation. And we said, fine. And they just built in 1 year, 50 kilometers of Copenhagen-style infrastructure, and they continued the next year. The goal with them is 10% on bikes from nothing, like literally zero, in 5 years. And they are now in year 4, and they are at 8%. They're going to nail it. It's awesome. And the best infrastructure for bikes, like quality-wise, on the planet today is in Almatyevsk. Weird. But it's so awesome. And now Russia's just going, wait, a Russian city did it? This is also the thing. If one city does it, it's not like, oh, that's Copenhagen. Oh, wait, my neighboring city did it. Oh my God, I want to compete with them, right? Somebody in my region did it. You know, Cincinnati does it, Cleveland wants to do it, or, you know, it's really, it's interesting how that works. But yeah, now Russia's waking up. Like, they were really late to this game. Detroit. I designed the entire bicycle infrastructure network for the city of Detroit. They said, we don't want to be the motor city anymore. This is their words. The mayor said, we're not the motor city, we're the mobility city now, right? And we can reinvent ourselves now. This is our time. And they're just starting work on it. When these weird cities are doing that, man, if your city's not doing this, it's getting awkward. It's getting embarrassing. This is the new normal, man. So, I mean, what are the tools, man? We got, political will. Really, like all over the world, it's really like politicians who get it. The willingness to experiment. Like, really, Copenhagen is Copenhagen today because of pilot projects. We didn't, go through the long discussion process. We said, let's just try this new idea. And really, since like the 90s, we went, I don't know, we don't know if that's going to work. It probably will work, but okay. And the citizens, of course, are going, we don't want that stupid new stuff, The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, he says, everybody wants progress, but nobody wants change, right? Like, so we know this about people in cities, and we love our citizens, but like we know that's what we're working with here. We're going to put in this bike lane here. I don't want the bike lane. Yeah, but it's only for 6 months, and then we'll take it out if it doesn't work. Yeah, that's not going to work. And then 2 days later, it's like, that's awesome, right? That's normal, right? Like in Copenhagen, we pedestrianized the entire city, a main street through the city center in 1960. One of the first cities to do it, the world's longest pedestrian street. And there were protests. And literally, there were posters saying, we are not Italians. Danish people, we're not Italians. We don't want to walk down the street and have conversations. We want to drive our cars. Literally, it was like massive protests. We are not Italians. Where was I just recently? It was in the city of Łódź in Poland, just like last week. And there's the same protest. The Poles are saying, we're not Italians. I thought it was so funny. And then they just put it in anyway, and Danes are going, ciao bello, va bene. It's like we all discovered we were Italians, or really we just discovered we're just Homo sapiens who want a nice city to live in. That's all. So. We need more people at the table. We need anthropology, sociology, direct human observation, studying people on the streets. We need transport psychology. We need them at the table. And we have this silo at the moment of traffic engineering in our cities. We need that silo to be broken down and have one big round table where everybody has an equal say, because, man, we got new ideas. Old ideas, but we're bringing them back. We're bringing them back to the future. We need a design intelligence. Let's design our cities and think about the human-to-human experience. Let's get data. Whoever has the most data in a city is powerful. If it is the activists and the citizens, that is dangerous for the city. If the city has the most data, that works out well for everyone because they understand the importance of data. So get the data. Leadership, vision. It's also modern branding and tourism, man. It's really interesting, like, all of my colleagues who work in cities around the world as politicians and mayors, the former mayor of Bogota, the former 2 mayors of Copenhagen, the lady in charge of transport in New York, they have a speaking career for the rest of their lives because all we want to hear about is how did you do that? How did you take away 7,500 parking spots? Amsterdam's taking away 10,000 parking spots until 2025. They have bike lanes already. They just want more public space. They want to re-democratize their city. Tired of the transport dictatorship of automobiles, and they want to just make it more democratic now. I mean, and these are the people who are talking. And we're, the New York Times. Oslo's on the cover of the New York Times all the time because, like, they're going, what are you doing? How many? car-free city center? Amsterdam, wow. This is the narrative that is interesting. Our citizens of our cities everywhere, in this age of urbanism, we realize that something's different. And we look for inspiration in other places, other cities that are doing amazing things, you know. There's really I always joke, like, there's only 2 politicians in history who we remember for building roads. One of them was Eisenhower, who built the American highway network after the war, and he was directly inspired by the guy he beat, Adolf Hitler, and who built the Autobahns and pushed bicycles out. And he was saying, we beat him, he was an asshole, that guy, totally. But his Autobahn idea was really interesting, and he built it in America. Boy, is that the club you want to be in? Or do you want to be in the club where you go to conference and say, I made my city better, right? I improved human lives in my city. I did this for the future generations. That's the narrative that we want now, especially in Germany, this climate-conscious country like no other. Man, this is what we want to hear. We want to hear who did good things, who saved lives. That's the thing. So this is kind of funny. This was really popular on Twitter, but I sort of said, life with cars, it says up there at the left. Life with electric cars on the right. Life with autonomous cars on the bottom left. There's going to be more of them because they can travel closer together, so they're going to squeeze more into our fucking cities. Or you can choose life. You can choose everybody from the wheelchair users to the cyclists to the public transport users, the elderly, whatever. You can choose life. That's where you need to go. I always think, like, you guys are always saying, oh, but this is a car country, Michael. You know, and I know you guys, your politicians, oh, the car industry, oh. You know what? Car sales are not an indicator of economic growth anymore. They are a sign that your country has failed its citizens. Let's use different economic indicators. Healthy children. Ooh, crazy. Wow, the health of our children has improved. The pollution levels are gone down. You know, like more people are walking. They're healthier. They're less obese. I mean, this is the sign of a modern city. Whoever's doing that is the economic indicator. That is the sign of a city succeeding at doing what a city should do, making lives better for their citizens. I always get asked, Michael, what's a perfect street? What's a good street for you? You know what a good street is? It's where I can transport myself down it and I don't die, and I actually get healthier while using that street. That's bikes, man. That is walking. That is, kids just running along in front of their parents. That is a good street. And that's really, we just need new questions. So we need to change the question. That's really important. We're building monuments. We think global, which is really important, but we got to act more local. Cities are the absolute key to fighting climate change, and we're not doing it enough. You know, we need to use our cities, man. It's really incredibly important how we're not doing that. But you know what? I'll leave you with poetry here. Like, we're building monuments. That's all we're doing. Well, we're going to build a bike lane here. We're going to talk about this. We're going to try and plant an urban farm. We're going to do all these things, and we're going to do like a amazing bicycle referendum and all the great things. But you know what? We're building monuments. We completely destroyed our cities, you know, after the war. Like, you know, we bombed them and then we destroyed them again, right? It was like we double bombed them. And you know, really, it's like we have to fix that. We're building monuments to the people who live in our cities now, to the lives lived here today, and the lives that will be living in our cities for the next, 100, 200 years. I always say that if you don't see the bicycle as part of the solution for cities, if you don't see cities as part of the solution for fighting climate change, then you're part of the problem. That's the simple thing. You can be the problem, or you can be a monument builder. Make your choice. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Michael. I got only 2 questions, one for you and one for the mayor. How long will it take to change Cologne? You experienced it last evening. What do you think? 1 year, 3 years, 4 years?
I don't know the context of the city well enough, to be honest. Like, I'm not going to even say that. But I mean, you have, like I always say, 0 to 5% on bikes is the hardest thing you're ever going to do, right? Going from that 2% to 10 in Ljubljana, it wasn't hard because they did it quick, but that's the challenge. What do you have in, somebody tell me, what's the modal share for bikes in Cologne?
18, 19.
18 or 19? Oh my God. Or is it less? Yeah? Yeah, all right.
18, 19.
That's, I mean, that is, you know, you can go to 50% literally in 5 years. I mean, it will require a lot of work. I'm not a politician, so that's not my problem. But I mean, like, my point is, I see this happening. I'm an optimist. I get out of bed in the morning and want to see amazing things in cities. And I see cities who can do it. I see it's possible. So maybe 10, whatever. But I mean, like, man, you can go. I was riding around yesterday with the film crew, and like I said, I feel like a second-class citizen. Like, you have all these pedestrians and bikes. It was that weird day between the holiday and the weekend, so there's, and like, man, you just got all that arrogance of space for cars out there who are contributing very little to the environment of the city. And man, I'm just going like, I am totally a second-class citizen. I'm like I'm like we treat immigrants in Denmark, which is not very good. You guys are way better at that in respect. But I mean, like, it's just like, I'm a second-class citizen. Like, I'm just like relegated to like the Bundesliga 4 here, you know? God, that's what it felt like.
So, and the question to the mayor, Rick, is, would you risk to work together with this stupid man, with this crazy man?
It's no risk, it's the same vision, and I saw one of the last pictures, Detroit. And you know, Cologne is not far away from the situation with the car industry as Detroit. And I think Detroit will need some years, and I agree to say between 5 and 10 years it must work.
Super. And thanks a lot. Your brand name and the title of your book is Copenhagenize. So we thought, how could we call it in Cologne? Colonize sounds a bit strange. And Ute and I was talking about that, and she said, Culturenize sounds good. There you go. So let's talk about Culturenize this city within the next 5 years. All right. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you.